Mike EP, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hey, what is up? What is up?
Not much.
Oh man, I love this. I love the my green screen is sort of like it does look like it looks like a banner.
Yeah, like a
It looks like
tapestry in the back behind you.
a tapestry. You're right. I was like, I didn't know what you were talking about at first, but now we know.
Yeah,
Now we know it's a tapestry in the back.
it looks all right. It looks good. Did you turn the light
I'm
off
I'm
since
just
we checked? Because I mean, it's less on that side.
I'm just
No
being
worries.
I'm just hold on. Let me try to see if that just ruins everything.
Yeah, it fixes everything. It
Did
brightened up.
it?
It brightened it all up. Yeah. I mean,
Oh wow.
like I said, behind the microphone is a little bit weird, but that's good. It's good. It's all good. It's all good. We're all good. How you doing?
We're, I'm doing good, brother. Thank you for having me on, man. I'm sorry I'm being all like, oh man, we get this green screen going.
It's all right. I've never worked a live green screen like that before because I don't have one behind me. But
It's all good. Well, I mean, anything's better. Not anything. I'm not trying to talk shit here about Raina's background, but initially I was like, because I was using Raina's background as my background for my podcast, for my stream.
yeah.
And I was like, this is crazy. I can't have her background be my background. It just doesn't sit right with me.
Mm.
It's just not right. It's just not right. So I like the green screen option because it completely changes the space because we're sharing a space here,
Yeah.
and and you know how much goes into getting ready for a stream. So like imagine having to do changeover and stuff. Especially towards the beginning, it was madness. It was
Yeah,
madness.
well, you only started streaming in like June, right? You were just
Yes,
doing
yes.
audio before that?
Hold on. Yeah, I was just doing audio. The podcast We Speak English Good was just for the last 5 years. I've been talking to musicians, comedians. Sometimes I have on scientists. Like once, I only had on a scientist once, but but mostly musicians. Yeah. So it is an audio podcast, and it has like the stream has its basis in the podcast, and now the stream has become the podcast, which is now a good time for me to just say podcast again because I keep saying podcast. So, yeah,
I
podcast.
enjoy podcasts. I was sort of introduced to podcasts through Joe Rogan, but
Oh yeah,
it
totally.
wasn't really a familiarity to me. I didn't like go out and look up other people's podcasts. Since we're going to say
Mm.
that word, we might as well have a counter going on to find out how many.
We'll have a podcast counter.
But I developed an interest through Duncan Trussell.
Mm.
Got to clarify, always clarify. Um,
Clarify, Duncan Trussell.
but it developed into because I was doing gaming as a thing beforehand, and I was just like, well, not really feeling the gaming. Let's just move the podcast thing to Twitch. Let's just start it
Yeah.
from Twitch, and I sort of expanded outward from Twitch because Twitch was the first platform that I was familiar with using. So I
Well, I
grew
mean,
from there.
I mean, if you have all the gear and you already have all the stuff, and it's like hell yeah, Twitch is a great platform to launch a podcast from because I mean, especially if you have all the gear.
Yeah.
Now, if you're trying to start, if you have an established podcast, or if you're trying to start a podcast and start streaming and do it all at the same time, it might get a little monotonous. But
Well, it is because I mean, I didn't really grow an audience from my gaming or anything like that. So for me, it was just like, let's see what else we can do, you know? And
yeah,
that's where it expanded to. So, I mean, I think it's going pretty well, but
yeah,
we'll see where it leads. The path, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on to see where this conversation takes us about podcasting mainly.
sweet.
When you're how many years went into, I mean, what kind of time went into planning this before you decided I'm going to do a podcast? Or did you just decide one day, okay, I have a microphone, I have a computer that's capable, I'm going to do this podcast thing? What was your approach on it?
Okay, so I got a lot of phlegm because hold on, I'm gonna clear. I got a lot of phlegm
We all
because I've been smoking like this fucking shit called THCA.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. It's like crystallized fucking marijuana.
Yeah.
It's not even marijuana anymore. It's fucking narcotics.
All crystal.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you swear on here, but it's already
We're
happening.
good.
Okay. So I have all this extra phlegm, so I apologize from all my coughing. But the question was, what got me into podcasting? So I had a band back in the day called the Concrete Project, RIP. I love that band. It was a hip hop band that mixed like funk, hip hop, rock, the roots type thing. And I loved it. And all the guys in the band were very close to me, still are. We're very close knit. We're in a group chat, like a band group chat that we still keep alive, and it's fun and perverted and disgusting and beautiful and funny. And there's children, pictures of children in there, and then there's a dick pic, and then it's just it's a band chat. It's all the things like in a band group chat that it's still that, and I love those guys very much. Which I'm trying to do a podcast with all of them. I'm going to try to get it happening in November. But so we would spend a lot of time, instead of practicing, we'd spend a lot of time outside of the studio, sort of smoking cigarettes and drinking beers, smoking weed, and just making jokes. And we thought we were so funny. And I remember being like, and Joe Rogan and Mark Maron were the two main driving forces for me for podcasting. They're like the Podfathers, right? It's like Adam Carolla, Mark Maron, JRE, and that other guy who has the first podcast, whatever his name is, Adam something. But yeah, so I was just like, well, we can do this shit. If they can do it, we can do it. And at the time I started it, 5 years ago, it was 2014 or 15. So, the market was already saturated, but it wasn't saturated enough to where like, oh, do you like podcasts? And people were still like, what the fuck's a podcast? People, like now, everyone knows what a podcast is, and everyone's trying to start one. And that's fine. I love it. I love the idea of everyone coming in and starting their shows and getting their thoughts and ideas out there, because it really is helpful. And so I thought it'd be fun to have the guys and have us, the band, be a podcast. And it could be this sort of way we network, and it could be this way that we get our music out and sort of give the fans more. But what it quickly turned into, what I found out, was that no one really cared about showing up weekly, and doing this podcast on top of band rehearsals, on top of relationships, on top of full-time jobs, on top of exorbitant amounts of rent in San Diego at 3 blocks from the beach, So like it quickly sort of turned into me and my other homie, who was my co-host for a while, but then it just fell on to me. But I started it because I wanted it to network, and also I have a hard time with talking and communicating. And I thought that this would be a good way to sort of circumvent that and sort of work through that process, because I had when I started the podcast, I had recently quit drinking. And my father had died, and my wife was pregnant, and so I was really going through a weird time in life. And so I didn't have the crutch of alcohol anymore to sort of do that social lubrication, because for me, alcohol it was more than super social lubricant. It was like a social fucking like oil fire. It was like an oil spill that caught on fire, because I was just a horrible human being as a drunk, and much better as a sober person. Well, I'm not going to say sober, very far from sober, but as I am abstinent of alcohol and narcotics. Let's just put it like that. But yeah, so for me, the podcast was this way of sort of addressing and confronting these fear of talking and communicating. And if I can't even listen to those first few episodes, it's just me going, just saying stupid shit, like saying, like,
I feel like that sometimes too when I'm talking. I go through my episodes in editing, and I'm just like,
it's annoying, and I still struggle, and I'm still not good at it. Like I want to be. I'll sit there and I'll be saying like all the time. I'll be saying or blah, blah, blah. You know, like I'm just always stammering over my words, and I'm not as I'm better at it now, but I mean at the beginning I was just stammering. I mean, like I mean to this day my hands get fucking soaked, sweaty with anxiety. I get nervous. I you know, I just like I have to.
I know the
There's
feeling.
definitely yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a steps that go into preparing for a show, and then especially when I brought it to Twitch,
Yeah.
I mean that just ramped everything up fucking 1,000. So, yeah, I started the podcast initially to, you know, with my friends in my band to network, but also to address my my issues with communication and just being just being tied up on my words, because without alcohol I didn't, because alcohol, you know, it makes you feel like you're a big guy, you know, it gives you your ego that boost, that you know, it gives you that bravado that you wish you could be, that you never were, but now because you drank this magic sauce, you are as cool as, but in reality, you're just like this guy who's like, let me touch your titties. You know, it's just awful. So,
I'm kind of reading a book that ties into that, so it's interesting how you brought that up. So, but yeah, I kind of get it. I'm not, I don't drink at all myself. I really drink rarely on occasion. But, one of my friends when I was younger brought up a point. He's like, if you don't enjoy the taste of it, then there's no point in doing it. So I
yeah.
only really drink things that I enjoy the flavor of, like
Yeah.
a couple mixed beverages that I enjoy particularly. There's one
Bro.
called a Blue Freezy that tastes exactly like what it sounds like, and like
That sounds like
flavored
a
drinks like
hangover.
that. I've had a hangover twice in my life, so that just tells you
Oh, you're
how
one of the lucky ones.
unfrequently I partake in those kinds of beverages. But
Oh, bro. I wish, no, for that reason alone, I wish I could still drink. For that reason alone, I would just to have like a nice red wine paired with my filet mignon, you know, like I just want like no, for real, like I just want a nice a glass of scotch just in front of the fireplace, because that's nice, right? Like I want to have like a nice port to pair with my dessert, you know what I mean? Like for that reason alone, eating with my alcohol, or just having that feeling, like just like a nice solid drink, and none of that bullshit like Budweiser or you know, fucking, I don't know, what is it called? Black Velvet. I know that's a Canadian favorite over there. Black
we've
Velvet.
got Labatt Blue, I think, is a Canadian one that you guys don't
Labatt Blue,
have.
bro. Labatt Blue is the first beer I ever puked
Oh,
off
really?
of. So like
Okay.
it has a
We have one called Molson Canadian that you definitely don't have, I don't think.
I love no, I love
Really?
Molson.
You guys have that?
Dude, I
Okay.
used to hang out in Canada all the time.
All right.
But I was just curious, what was the book you're reading?
Well, it's an audio book. It's called The Immortality Key. Hold on a second. Let me pull up something about it so I can actually tell you more about it.
Tell me about it.
There it is.
I'm sorry, I had to get that abooted. It's just what I had to do. Also, I have this.
I have one like that too.
Oh, I can't hear yours.
Okay, so it's called The Immortality Key: The Secret History of the Religion with No Name. By, I can't say his last name properly, Brian Muraresku. Sorry, Muraresku, I think is how Joe Rogan said it.
Out in the street, they call it murder.
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna hijack your show. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
But I'm really interested in this book.
Yeah. So I mean,
because you related like sobriety and abstinence of alcohol.
Yeah,
and
he
drugs
talks
to
about
it.
how they used to spike. Possibly, they're looking into it in this book about how there's a possibility that they used to spike alcoholic beverages with psychedelics, and that might have been the door opening to God, or what religion is believed to be, because when you have this psychedelic experience that they talk about, you're supposed to be contacted or visited by some form of entity within your psyche, and it imparts knowledge and wisdom on you that you're not yourself, or your consciousness isn't particularly aware of prior to the experience. And so they call it, when they come out of it, they call it God. And the book is about how these kinds of roots might tie in with the origin of religion in general. But specifically, it cites Christianity, and it brings in like the Greeks and Romans and Catholics up a lot too. So, I mean, I'm just starting this book, but it's a topic that I've been interested in for a while, and it really delves into it. It's a 15-hour audiobook that I've been, so we'll see what
write
happens.
this down because I want to read it. It sounds like a book I want to read. Immortality Key. I mean, that's interesting, right? Like, it's interesting to think that maybe that the possibility of psychedelics are the backbones of like of a religion like Christianity.
Well, it's not just that.
Like,
I mean, Joe Rogan hypothesized in one episode. I mean, it's somebody else's hypothesis, but called the mushroom theory. It's that
Yeah, the mushroom. It's not the mushroom theory. It's the idea that the Bible was code for people taking psychedelics.
We're going back further than the Bible now. We're talking about when humans were coming out of being hunter-gatherers, coming out of the forest to look for food and stuff like that, and they turn over these, and I'm going to quote Joe Rogan because he'd call them cow turds, cow patties.
Yeah.
And growing out of this fungus of this, cow shit are these psychedelic mushrooms. And so when you're with a tribe of your hunter-gatherer family and you find these mushrooms that are completely edible and they can sustain you, and you start taking them and gathering them and eating them for who knows how many hundreds of years, it might have an effect on the actual, capacity of the brain and what your psyche is actually capable of, and consciousness expands. Not necessarily because, it's a human developmental thing, but because these psychedelic mushrooms help to expand the psyche. So it sort of brings out the idea that sort of we might all be here because of this fungus. And these mushrooms were fully sustained in a growing organism before humans were even a thing, before humans were walking the face of the earth. So...
yeah, that idea. Who's that guy that Rogan talks all about? Terrence McKenna.
Terrence McKenna, yeah.
Which before I even knew about Joe Rogan, I knew who Terrence McKenna. I read the book Food of the Gods when I was younger, and and he has that sort of that same idea, the stoned ape theory, where
that's exactly what it's called. I was trying to think of the name of it, but you quoted.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so Terrence McKenna kind of came up with this idea that because there's so many ideas to how we got sort of to be the human beings we are today, and sort of the evolution of man, and that there's this sort of missing link or whatever between the lower hominids and who we are, and that the idea was that they would eat these mushrooms, and that sort of was the link that sort of expanded our mind and our perception, and how to like start agriculture and like the whole thing, which I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, but I think
you're doing a better job than I did.
Well, it's not my butts, trust me, not my stuff was just, but it's only because I've read the book, and Joe Rogan talks about it all the fucking time. It's like all the dude talks about is taking psychedelics and fucking MMA and shit. So
if you can have an experience that, even if it's in your mind, where you feel like you've met what could have created you. I mean, some of the gurus say, I don't know, that's just like having a visit with God. You're going over to his house for a visit or whatever. If you want to meet God, you want to go there and you want to live there or whatever.
Oh, bro, I've talked to God a couple times, bro. It's like, I've been there, baby. I've talked to him face to face. But like, I think it's in different ways, because there's this sort of, especially with DMT, there's this sort of through line that a lot of people get, where they have, where they see the little like gray little alien things, and they're like little beings, these little amorphous beings. And I've seen those, but they've never talked to me. But I've definitely had experiences with DMT where I'm being like guided through doors, I'm being asked questions, you know what I mean? And that experience of talking and having these profound experiences when you come out of this, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, it could be a chemical reaction, right? Like that's what most people who've never done psychedelics will say, well, it's just a chemical reaction. But I mean, when you come back from it and when you're a person again, and I mean, like, you know that something profound has happened. You know that you have gone somewhere else. Like there, you have got, especially with DMT. With mushrooms is a different thing, but what I'm talking specifically with DMT because there is definitely a here I am, and then there is an obliteration of self, and there's no real there. Then the in between feels like you're dying physically. And so it's like it's like this you know the feeling of have you ever done DMT first of all? I
Well,
don't know if
let's start
that.
here. Yeah,
Sure.
I've never experienced any psychedelic trip.
Okay,
I
cool.
smoke a lot of weed, so
Yeah.
it's interesting when people like when I started like learning about psychedelic trips and DMT and all LSD and all kinds of stuff. I was like interested in people would mention seeing fractal patterns and stuff like that, like a kaleidoscope or whatever. And I somehow draw familiarity to that. It's like I didn't have like many toys like kaleidoscopes. I had a kaleidoscope when I was a kid, but that didn't like it wasn't a fond memory or anything. But it always when somebody mentioned that to me, it was like why does that feel so familiar? And it's not like just familiarity. It was more I can't really explain what it was, but it was like home. When I thought of I deal with a lot of like fractal artwork. It's not mine, but I like sort of manipulate some stuff. Half of the reason why I don't share a lot of the artwork that I create is because it's not mine. So I don't have the rights to share it. But I work with some stuff that's sort of like fractally and stuff like that. And I enjoy like staring at it for like hours and just watching the way that things move and I haven't like that's only recently, and I haven't done any psychedelics before. I've taken mushrooms twice, but they had absolutely no effect. I had no trip.
Oh,
I took them with food. The first time was pizza, and the second time I put it in a Joe Louis, and I ate the Joe Louis. But
what is what?
It's probably a Canadian thing. So it's like a chocolate cake with like whipped cream in the middle.
Oh, it's like a. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's like a
like a little.
I know it's like
pastry
little
dessert.
Debbie type snack cake stuff.
Exactly.
I got you.
Here they're made by a company called Vachon, but Little Debbie does exist here. We just don't see them as often. Anyway,
got you.
off of snack foods and back to psychedelics, they did absolutely nothing to me. I had no trip. I had no experience. My whoever I was with did.
You're taking the wrong psychedelics, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, Adam? Thanks for stopping in, buddy.
Hey, Adam. How's it going? But yeah, I didn't experience anything, but the person I was with did. So I know that they weren't like.
Oh, well, what the fuck?
So it was really, it was upsetting. And
well, first of all, wait. First of all, are you sure your friend was telling you the truth? Because maybe your friend was full of shit and he was just like, oh man, I'm fucking tasting clouds, bro, and I'm a cup of orange juice. Don't knock me over, I'll spill, bro.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
This friend is still a friend and has been very honest with me for a long time, so I believe that it's
okay. So
that
it could possibly be something with you. It could be something with you.
It could be something with me. I've heard that a lot that psychedelics are it's about setting and like how you sort of anticipate the experience to be. Not necessarily mushrooms, but like DMT specifically. It's about you have to be aware that you want to experience it, and you can't be like anxious about it, and just have to approach it calmly. Otherwise, it becomes this thing where it's going to scare you or whatever. The trip's not going to help you. You're not going to break through or whatever.
Right.
But
yeah, totally. You definitely want to be in an area with friends, with surrounded by people you love, in a really chill environment. I would suggest not, if you're taking psychedelics, don't the first time, don't just eat a bunch of psychedelics and go to like maybe a huge concert. I mean, that might sound fun in practice and in theory, but when you are under the influence and you have 1,000 souls surrounding you and you're realizing that Earth is this fucking organic spaceship flying through space, you kind of want to be grounded somewhere and not have this loud amplification system fucking vibrating you, fucking deatomizing you with its fucking bass vibrations. It's just like it's not helpful. So you definitely want to be in a chill spot with chill people and with chill music and it's definitely a low key thing for me. But I like that you are drawn to the idea of fractals, like because the idea of fractals, those ancient shapes, like there's a reason why we feel so familiar with those things. There's a reason why we see those same shapes in these old ancient like Indian like the oh my god, come on, the Aztecs and stuff, like Aztec designs. When you look at those designs, you see fucking the same shit that you see when you're tripping on DMT or even mushrooms, is like these crazy fractal fucking kaleidoscope colors and shapes. It's nuts. So I mean, these aren't ancient things that are being sort of passed through, I don't know, genetically or culturally or through the drugs themselves. I don't know.
The thing is that one thing I learned growing up is that there was a universal language, and that universal language was mathematics. Now, I'm not very good with math.
I thought you were going to say meth. I thought you...
No.
And that's crystal meth.
No, mathematics, you know, basically understood by any species. You know, if you have one of something or if you have two of something, any species is going to understand, okay, we have two spaceships or one spaceship, or rather, I have two candies and then I have one candy, whatever. If there's two of something, it's acknowledged that it's not necessarily called two in Glip Glorp, but definitely acknowledged as a numeric value that's more than one, if it's, you know, more than one. But the other universal language that people don't seem to acknowledge too often is geometry. And as you say, it's very ancient. And like people see UFOs all the time, while they're from the bottom, they look circular. From the side, they look like an oval. That's still geometry. Everything has to have a shape. Everything physical, that is, in this realm has to have a shape. So that comes in there. I don't remember how we got to talking about geometry, other than the fact that we were just talking about, you know, being fractal patterns. That's how. Fractal patterns. Right. So everything has a shape. So there's always been these ideas of, like, you know, if you look, when humans came into existence or whatever, you know, plants already grew on the earth and they had a shape. You know, before we were here, there was shapes. Before we existed, before the first animal that ever opened its eyes, before the first living amoeba that ever opened its eyes existed, there were shapes. And these patterns occurring naturally. If you look at a leaf and you see the veins in a leaf, it's sort of like a fractal pattern branching off from an individual section in the middle, and they're all going in different ways, and they got these it's like veins in your arm. I got really tight veins, but whatever. They've always existed. And this kind of ties in with my religious belief, which is not really anything. I don't really know what to call it. I just call it creationism, because it's about... Sorry, this isn't my interview. This is your interview, but we'll talk about you in a second.
Oh, I thought we were just having a free-form talk.
Well, I guess that's what I said, isn't it?
That's what you said to me.
Yeah.
Why are you lying to me, motherfucker?
What's going on
No,
here?
just kidding.
We're all jerking each other around, and not in a bad way.
No, I'm really into what you're saying, so I'd love for you to finish your thought.
Anyway, I talked to you on your podcast about wanting to interview Michio Kaku, Professor Michio Kaku. He's a big... one of my many scientific inspirations, like influences or whatever you want to say. He's got this view on the universe that it exists in 11 dimensions, and that before anything else existed, it existed as this... he describes it in a number of videos. I shared the content with you after our interview, as an arena or a diamond, and I sort of swing it around. Science makes sense, and the things that make sense because they've been explained by people who actually understand them. I don't necessarily claim that I know anything about what I'm talking about. I just relay information that I've heard from smart people that have been fact-checked, I don't spew out knowledge and say this is the truth. But what I believe is based on scientific evidence, not necessarily scientific fact, but scientific evidence. And the thing about science is that a lot of the time it's wrong. And it's got a lot in common with me that way. I've got a lot wrong with me sometimes. I can't exactly, I was learning about music through somebody who wasn't a musician the other day, and they were saying, it was through a video. It wasn't like directly at me, but they were saying when you're playing music, you should allow yourself to embrace mistakes. And if you make a mistake, just keep going with it. It's not about stopping to embrace the mistake. But to get on with what I was talking about in the belief system, Michio Kaku said that the universe exists in 11 dimensions. So there's this diamond that exists, and it's what some people might call God, because within the diamond exists all the knowledge of anything that's in the universe. Excuse me. One of the key elements of this is that it's a Hindu or Buddhist belief of the Atman. I don't know if you've heard of the Atman, but it's like I see it as sort of like if you want to see it as like what's the DC character or whatever, Brainiac. He has this ship that comes down and it sort of controls everybody by plugging into their heads or whatever, and it's like that. If you think of imagine like a living planet that sends down these. You remember the Sentinels from the Matrix? Mm-hmm. They had all these tentacles
the
and stuff
robots.
like that, and the tentacles always reminded me of the things they plugged into the back of their heads. Mm-hmm. So imagine a Sentinel exists that is these little plugs that you plug into the back of your head, and from that Sentinel is your consciousness, and it's sort of uploading into you. So basically the Sentinel is the diamond, and it's got all the information in the universe, and it's being plugged into your head. I mean, I'm getting too elaborate with this, but the diamond exists as knowledge has to exist. It like the diamond has to exist because, and by diamond I mean God. Red has to be red, and blue has to be blue. So information that, scientifically speaking, information can't be destroyed. So once it exists, once a fact exists, it's a fact regardless of whether you believe it or not. Right? So if you have the color red, it's the color red because it has so much shades of whatever other colors in it, but it exists like that, and it has to be red because it's red. And that knowledge has to exist somewhere in the universe for it to be true. So I believe that that information is contained within this diamond, and it exists. I don't know. Basically, because
it sort of exists for us to pull from.
Yeah,
sort of like
that's the best way to describe it. Is
sort of tap into it. There's this sort of pool of information, this pool of knowledge that exists that can't be destroyed or invented, but just is almost like God.
Right, and that's like some people when they're creating, they talk about pulling, it out of the ether. This song came from nowhere. We just grabbed onto it and pulled it out.
Right,
and that's kind of how I feel about that kind of thing.
Yeah, man. No, I'm with you because it is that weird mystery that we sort of that we draw upon when we're in that creative mode. Especially when you're in these like flow states of working, where I'm gonna clear my throat. Hold on. especially when you're in those flow states, you're like, it's like you lose track of time, you lose track of your space even. You're only hyper focused on what you're creating or what you're doing. And people get in these flow states all the time. People try to train their brain to get in these flow states to keep a certain amount of workflow going, especially when you look at these high output producers and stuff. They're just constantly trying to find a way to mine material. Or if you think about somebody who has to do music for a TV show, commercial, movie, all in the same day, and your deadline is, you get your deadline's noon, right? You have 4 hours to just shit this all out. You have to be able to attain that, to tap in and just to be able to create. And it's kind of a combination between all the information that you do already know and the combination of tapping into that unknown diamond, or God, or whatever you want to call it, because you're on a schedule. So people absolutely will try to train their brains into do it. I mean, like MMA fighters, obviously, they try to get into these workflow. Anything that you're doing where you have a hyper focused attention attention to detail needs to be there. I mean, it's the best way to do it is sort of create this collaboration between, what you know and the unknown. And that's sort of, that's like what's fun about just creating a new track in general, where you're just sort of like, well, I have this sort of beat. Now start from just like, I have this beat. So it's like, I have no idea what else is going to go on top of that. So I'll just start with that beat, and then I'll just grab the bass, and then it's just right away. I just something right away. It's just there. But that's a combination of doing it over and over and over again, creating beats, playing bass lines over and over and over again, and just trusting that I'm gonna come up or be able to tap into that unknown diamond.
Yeah,
I like that you call it the diamond.
See, that's the thing. A lot of people call it, God, and I can't bring myself to believe that it's like a person or a physicality of any kind. So I could never get around the idea of like, when I was younger, my mom was Catholic. She was raised Catholic, and my dad was raised atheist.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he was raised atheist, but he came out.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Was they like, there is no God, there is no God, there is?
I don't think there was ever much enforced in his family about God, or they didn't go to church or anything like that. But right. So I had like an interesting upbringing as far as religion went. It was never forced on me, but there was aspects of it in my life. So when I got people telling me, "Oh yeah, there's a God, and he's omnipotent, and he loves you," and things like that, I was like, "Who is he, and why does he love me? He's watching me.
Why does he give a fuck about us?" Yeah. So wait, he's watching us masturbate in the shower.
When you
like,
explain
what?
that, okay, yes, the information that you're going to masturbate in the shower exists within this diamond, and it's just being your thought about, oh, I'm going to masturbate while I'm in the shower, is coming into being because it exists in this diamond. And
right.
It's not about some guy going, hey, I see you doing naughty things. So it becomes something that I can embrace at that point in time. And it's not just about like thoughts, like you were saying with music, you pull on creation from that too and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys have been in my Discord or anything, but I just sat down yesterday morning, I think, and I just wrote a poem in my Discord, and I put it down, and it doesn't exist anywhere else yet. I'm going to post it on my website, but it's just about art, and it just came out of nowhere. And I don't, I think that way, but I don't think that I sort of pulled that from, I don't think that I pulled that from myself, Although I think the way that I expressed myself, I don't think that I pulled it from myself. So that's why I have this kind of belief,
Yeah, no, there's definitely moments where you're just like, you sit down and you do whatever you're creating, and then you walk away and you're just like, I don't remember, like, there's things where I just don't even remember creating these moments. Like, I don't remember creating that. There's moments where it's just like, like 10 hours later, and you're just like, maybe I should drink water, or go to the bathroom. It's just, you're absolutely right. Something possesses you. It's like something actually works through you. But I had a hard time. I didn't want to laugh at you because what you were saying was like really profound and nice. And I didn't want to start laughing. But Adam said it's a shame that God watching us doesn't count as an extra view on Twitch. I was trying to choke down that laughter.
I was going to bring that up in a second. Raina, thank you for the follow.
It's art.
Yeah, Cunning has this point here.
18th century German physicist George Christoph Lichtenberg asked, after all, is our idea of God anything more than personalized incomprehensibility?
Personified.
Yeah, and
personified incomprehensibility.
Personified. Oh yeah, sorry. Personal.
It's a very true statement. Like, I mean, it is a good question.
Yeah.
But
don't be sorry, Adam. That was amazing.
It's not really anything more than personified incomprehensibility. I mean, you can't define what you are, and that's sort of how I feel. It's God. What are you? Well, I'm God. I pull on the information that I need to manifest what's going to happen in my day, and every moment is a new, significant piece of art that's being created by this diamond. Basically, if you shine a light through this diamond, it's like a prism. I mean, it doesn't work the same. Like, I mean, diamonds and prisms aren't the same thing, but it generates all these different rays of light in different directions, and you get brilliance.
So the question is, how does one tap that at will? How does one? That sounds kind of perverted.
Say, hey, baby, how you doing?
Tap that at will.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? Like I mean, like.
Better question here is how do you do it? How do you?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was kind of sort of positing the question for both of us because you wrote a dissertation. Oh, Dr. Cunning. I see. Dr. Cunning in chat, everybody. On mutual exclusivity of science and faith, and this is a topic close to my heart. Well, I'm glad you're here because I don't think me or Vallo have any kind of degree in anything. So you're at the perfect spot.
But you,
Dr. Cunning.
Exactly. You have the same interests in mind that I do half the day, most of the time.
So for me, the things that work best for creativity and creation is personally is variety. Variety is the spice of life for Mikey P. I cannot just sit there and oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna call you Dr. Cunning anyway. So there you go. It's over now. Dr. Cunning, everyone. But for me, music. Like I can't just create music every day. Like I'm not gonna sit down at my computer and just flip it on and be like, it's time to create. Even though I preach that, and there are modes when I get into that mode. And so it's not like I'm saying do that. But when people are asking you about like, how do I become a good producer? It's like, well, fucking produce some shit. Like that's the basic answer is like, just sit there and do it. Like you have to just keep doing it. It's the only way you're going to tap into something. Like if you sit around waiting for inspiration to strike, which it will once in a while. And some people work like that, and that's great and good for fucking you. But some people have to actually work for their shit. So, go fuck yourself. But you have to prime it like a pump. You have to sort of keep working at it.
Yeah.
And so for me, how it works is that I get very bored very easy, and I am definitely that ADHD kid who was drugged with Ritalin and Dexatrim. I think they even gave me that shit. It was tons of speed as a kid. Tons of speed. Just pumped me full of speed as a kid. I hate speed, by the way, everyone. I smoke indica because I can't stand the high and the tension from sativa. That's how big of a fucking. I had to quit drinking coffee. Okay, I can't. Stimulants are not my friend. So for me, I constantly have to keep my attention. First of all, in check, and also I have to keep it onto something I'm interested in, because I love music and I love it to death. But if I do it all the time, I fucking hate it and it turns into a job. So, that was the great thing about the podcast that was sort of an unintended consequence, was that in these weird dry spells of not being able to make music, because there's some times of the year that I just can't do it on my own. If I'm working with people or if I'm hired to do something, no problem. I'll knock it out. You got it, baby. But if it's just me trying to create for myself and create my own music, there's certain times of the year where I like, it's plentiful and bountiful, and then there's just certain times of the year where it's just like, go fuck yourself, Mike, you don't get nothing. And and to get past that, I know what I'd have to do. I'd have to sit there every fucking day. But do I have the patience for that? No. I'm one of those guys who fucking kind of can sort of ride the wave and then sort of move on to the next thing. And so what all this long fucking talk was about was that I need to be able to concentrate on different things. So like music for a certain amount of time, and then I can go to the podcast, and then I can go to the stream, I can go to video editing, I can go to music tutorials. I have all these options that I've sort of laid out for myself that have become part of what I am doing as just someone, as a content creator, that I get to sort of dip into. And so like right now, I'm coming off this huge project that took all summer. It was video editing. And I mean, like, it was a crazy project that had to be created from the ground up. And I was very lucky to have my wife on my team, because I don't know if I would have survived that if I wouldn't have had Raina talking me through it. But I did it the year before too, but it wasn't on this scale. So we had this huge project, and now we're sort of done with it. And I can't bring myself to do video editing right now. Like, I just can't. Like, it's just, I did so much. And like, there was points where I hated video editing, but it's like, deadline bitch, deadline bitch, deadline bitch, so it's like, you don't have the option to be like, I don't feel like doing video editing today. It's like, no, you have this job and you're getting paid for it, and now it's time to go do it. And so when you have to work past those moments, it's a good thing, because you do end up, for me, I do end up hitting this point, this stride where I actually love it again. But it's always that, like, I have to get into it and get past the initial, like, oh, I don't want to do this. So once I get into it, it's fine. But it's just like that idea of getting started can drive me nuts as well. But so for me right now, I have like my YouTube, I built it up over pandemic to make it somewhat cool. And now I have to get back into my music tutorials, and I have had no drive or want to do it. And just recently I have started to get the drive to come back. And so like, the great thing about the podcast is that it's this constant discipline where it's something for me, I have, it's something that every fucking week, that you have to have a podcast, and you have to have it out by Wednesday. You have to have flyers, and now that the stream, and I'm interviewing 2 people a week now, it's added an entire whole new fucking subset. So there are these constants that sort of keep me driving and keep me from just turning into a big fat gelatinous waste of fucking Netflix and chill. Because I can easily slip into that. But lately I've been having a hard time of connecting with movies and shows, but I've been watching The Boys, which I'm happy to say I love The Boys, and it's been like one of the only shows that I've been able to actually get into over quarantine. And then my family, of course, will force me to watch stuff that I don't want to watch, but I watch because I need to participate as a family member. So for me, for that long ass answer, it's for me, my well stays pretty full because I'm constantly changing direction, and I'm constantly changing attention, and I'm constantly sort of as I like drain the well for one project, subsequently the well fills for another subject, and that's just sort of how I've come into my creative process. And honestly, this is over the last 7 years probably that this has sort of come to be. The music thing, the music creation thing has been a constant, like where I just hit a certain, like winter usually is my time to shine and my creativity flourishes with music. But again, if I'm working with a band, if I'm working on a project, anytime I can turn it on because I have to, because people are counting on you to turn it on. But, is it going to be the best thing you ever do? I don't know. Maybe. It's not for me to decide, I guess. But I don't know. So, yeah, there's my very, very long answer for that complicated question.
Wasn't that long. We got more time.
Oh, good.
But
it felt like it was long.
I'll ramble on. Whatever. This is a podcast.
Yeah,
We're
well,
supposed to chat.
Yeah, exactly. Podcasts are made for ramblers.
Right?
I'm good at it. I'm getting better at it.
I get stuck rambling with my friends, and that's part of the reason why I was like okay with approaching it. I'm familiar with like sitting down and chatting with people, but it's kind of weird to do it like this. But during quarantine, it was too much non-interaction. I wasn't getting enough from people, so that's basically why I felt like doing all this stuff. But
well, yeah, I mean, it's like if you're doing something and you're not getting the results you want, I mean, first of all, I would say, especially if I would always ask, do you love what you're doing? I mean, like when you were playing those video games, did you love every moment of that? Was that like your favorite? Like, was that your favorite part of your day to stream video games?
If I was just playing them, I think I would have enjoyed it more. It was more the stress of looking at chat and going, "Hey, there's nobody here."
Yeah.
I have to still act like I'm enjoying myself, even though I'm anticipating a viewer or something.
And it is weird to sort of think about having to talk to no one, even though, like you sort of have to keep it going.
A lot of the time I was keeping to myself and I wasn't saying anything because there was nobody there. Right. And it's like, I'm not going to talk to nobody. When somebody comes, I'll talk to them. But people would come in and they'd watch me. They'd be like, why isn't this guy talking? Well, it's because I have no viewers that I'm not talking. That's part of the reason why I'm not growing.
Well, when you see when I see people, when I see like really good gamers, because I don't really watch gaming streams because I did so much of that, so much smoking weed and watching my friends play video games growing up that it's like, okay, I get this, it's fun, but I'll hang out in a few places. I have some gamer friends on Twitch, but for the most part, to me, it's not that great. But when I do watch people game, and especially if they're a small streamer and they sort of are starting to build a thing, the thing that I do notice is even if there's no one in there or even if there's one person in there, they always have this sort of dialogue that's going on. And whether it's with chat or with themselves or if they're talking at their game or whatever it is, they have this sort of dialogue like they're just talking like someone does exist. And that resonates with me because with this podcast, man, like for the first few years, you don't hear anything from anybody. Like you're just like, you don't know who's listening. And it's still I still don't understand how it works. Like I still have, I still have interaction with my fan base on there. And like, mind you, some of these podcasts get like 6,000 to 7,000 downloads. And I won't hear anything from anybody. Like no one gives a fuck. And I'm not trying to gloat. I'm not trying to gloat at all because 6,000 to 7,000 downloads is not shit. But
it's more than me.
For someone who's but for some exactly for me too, right? For me, that's like amazing. Like I don't know. Like I don't. So it's like I don't. It's really hard the back and forth I had with the podcast as opposed to the back and forth you have with chat. And for me, talking into a microphone to no one was I'm used to it. I'm very used to it now. Like I'm very much used to, I can just sit at a microphone and just be like, hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the We Speak English podcast. Today's guest is blah, 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 blah. And then I can just sort of start talking about my week or something that's on my mind. And I can just go for like 20, 30 minutes, half hour, however long it ends up being, which I try to put all that bullshit at the end of the podcast. I used to put it at the beginning of the podcast where I just have these long drawn out things. And it's like no one wants 45 minutes into a podcast to be getting to the interview. And it's just, to me, it was just nonsense. So I throw all that bullshit at the end. So because most people after the interview will just cut the fuck out and be like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
So mostly because of that, mostly because I know what I'm saying on the other end is not going to be heard by a whole lot of people. But also it's because it makes more sense to make an actual smooth sounding show that actually has sort of a movement to it instead of this like this chubby guy stammering into a mic for 45 minutes. You know, it's just it's how it, you know. Yeah. But yeah, it's a different world, man. It's a different world, especially with gamer streaming. Like that's a whole different world. I feel bad for gamers on Twitch. You know, I mean, like people who like, cause it's like it's pretty inundated market, right? It's a pretty saturated market to be playing video game. Like what? It's like every fat kid or every kid who grew up in his mom's basement in the Midwest or in rural Canada or whatever. It's every kid's dream to fucking I could just get paid off of playing video games, you know. So it's like it's every fucking you know, like loser or every fucking gamer's wet dream. You know what I mean? Like it's just if I could just stay. And I'm not trying to call gamers losers. I'm sorry, guys. But I'm just saying, you know, those people were still living at their mom's house playing video games in their basement.
Eventually, they'll win a tournament that pays $50,000, and don't worry, Mom, don't worry, it's going to pay eventually. Look at this guy; he's an example. You know, right. I get it for sure.
Yeah, but it's a hard market. It's a hard market. Like compared to music, like I see people who started with Reina, because Reina started a few months before me. But you see people who started with Raymond as gamers, and like half of them dropped off already. Like they had a hard time getting people, or they were gaining steam, and then they took a couple weeks off, and then they're back to fucking goose eggs, you know. And so it's definitely a harder hustle than I feel like music or even the podcasting thing. Like I feel like. And just chatting is the biggest. Yeah, is one of the bigger channels or
categories,
whatever categories on there. So, I mean, it's a tough hustle. So I don't think you made the wrong choice. But if it wasn't bringing you joy, if you were just sitting there being like, well, this is fucking stupid. No one's, you know, like if you're not having fun looking at goose egg in your chat, then you definitely should stop doing it. But
yeah, well, I wasn't trying to get viewers. That's the weird thing. It was just
you weren't trying, but you expected viewers.
I wasn't trying, but I expected. Like I'm like, oh, okay. Well, if I'm gonna stream my games, there's gonna be people show up because that's why I approached it like that. I was like, well, I'm gaming. I might as well be productive. So let's make a Twitch channel. Put the Twitch channel. I tried to stream a couple times, and there was some discrepancies that came up, family issues and stuff. So I was just like, okay, well, we'll hold it off till I can get my own space and do it more privately and out of the way. And then it turned into, okay, now we've got everything we need. Let's try this. And it was like, okay, now there's no viewers. There's no viewers. No viewers. No viewers. And so because I was getting drained, I was just not feeling it. So
no, I feel you.
There was something you brought up. It brought a thought in my head. One of the things that I like to do when I'm sort of like I've got like ADHD as well, so I get overwhelmed a little bit easier. Like I was saying earlier in Raina's chat, I'd rather be paying attention to the million things going on around me than focusing on the work that's in front of me. But I find. One of the things I do when I get like distracted like that is I go listen to a record. I have a lot of records. I listen to vinyl, and I'll put on a record, and I get a lot of like philosophy from like lyricists and like people who write music and not just writing but singing. And I've always a lot of people are just like nonchalant. It's just like, oh, it's music or whatever. But I really like listen to the words and take it to heart and stuff like that. One of the things that I was reminded of by something you said was, you'll be what you've done and not what you think of when you're alone. And so that's one of the things that I've put in, like, you know, when you're going to put in work into something, you have to do it. You can't just sit there and think, oh, well, I'm going to be a good streamer and I'm going to, you know, it's going to be great and the stream's going to be great or whatever. You can't just think that the stream's going to be great. You have to practice being a good streamer or practice being a good musician to be a good musician. I can't just sit here and think, oh, I'm going to be able to play guitar good because I like guitars and, you know, whatever. One of the shirts that I have in my merch store says, I don't play guitar because I'm good at it. I play guitar because I like it. And I think that's important. Is like, you have to like what you do. Because if you don't like what you do, then you're just going to get drained. and it's just going to eat the shit out of you. And then when you approach it for something that somebody approaches you for like a business deal or some kind of partnership, you're going to be like, yeah, sure, okay. And then you'll have to do it. And then you're like, oh, I don't want to do it, You have to like what you're doing, because if you don't, it's not going to be true.
Yeah.
You're just going to put like...
Yeah, you definitely have to like what you're doing, because there's going to be a time in your life where you're not going to be so thrilled about doing the thing that you love doing. Even though you love doing it, you're not going to be that thrilled. And to have the fact that to have that little tiny voice in the back of your head be like, come on, man, you love this. This is your life. This is what you worked for. Just push through and get this done, and
oh, snap.
do it big. But yeah, man, it's creative burnout is a killer. Oh yeah, man, it's real, and that's what I was saying. Like for me, I'm very fortunate that I've had this sort of compartmentalized brain where I have to sort of have everything be where I can't just be focused on one thing all the time. It's definitely a case for ADHD for me. It makes a case for it because I'm able to sort of really get hyper focused and really excited about working on this project, but and get it done and do it, and then I also have this that I can do. Like I'll sit down and like in the last couple of weeks I've had these moments where I'm like, okay, what do I gotta do? Where most of the time when I would sit down and I had a moment, it's like I knew exactly what I had to do, but now I'm sitting down where I don't have so much going on, where I'm sitting down where it's like, okay, what do I have to do now? Like I have a whole laundry list of shit I have to do, but it's like now that I don't have so much to do, I'm trying to figure out like where to go first, and to even get that the motivation, like the real motivation to get it done.
Yeah,
it's like I got lots of stuff I want to get done with the channel. I want to do a channel trailer. Because I got a YouTube trailer, and that was fun as fuck for me. But again, like the idea of editing video right now makes me want to fucking shit out of my mouth. So, so there you go.
Yeah, that little GIF that I made, I animated that within a video editor. I had to do all kinds of layers and stuff, and the video didn't want to save because of how many layers there were, so it was giving me so many problems, and I had such a big headache. I'm like, I gotta push this out, it's last minute, I gotta put something out there. It made me so angry, but I was just happy to get it done. But
dude, but you get it done and it feels good. And like I like that phrase you said too, because it kind of reminded me of something else. Can you say it again, that song lyric where it's like, it's better. It's kind of like what it resonated
be what
to me
you've
as
done, not what you think of when you're alone.
Yeah, exactly. Because the other thing about work too is that it's definitely a crutch and a coping mechanism for me. It's definitely something where I can if I'm in my worst depressive state, I can turn off. I can dull. I can't turn it on, but I can dull the nagging, drag down, just feeling. I can mitigate it enough to get through it just by diving into work and sort of ignoring it and sort of taking focus off of it. So it's also become this sort of work has become this great distraction. And what I like about that phrase is that you can sit there by yourself and you can think all the things you want to accomplish, and you can think about how terrible you are for not accomplishing it. Or you could sit there and refocus and get that done, and then at least you have your accomplishment left in the room, and not just the things that you could have done and the bad, like, negative self-talk or whatever it was that you're going through. And instead of, to me, that sort of resonated, like, take that and refocus your energy into something productive. And that's been my whole thing. I mean, especially through this pandemic, because it was such a crazy ass experience, especially towards the beginning, for everyone. And it's still a crazy experience, Jesus. But I mean, like, it was so huge for me. Work was so instrumental for my well-being, because I don't know what I would have been doing if all I had was the thought of the world collapsing, and and ultimately what it turns into is me watching in my head I go through the whole thing in an instant, and it all always ends up me watching my family starve to death in this like post-apocalyptic fucking nightmare. You know what I mean? So it always starts with like protesters getting taken in vans, and it always ends in fucking the buildings are the atmosphere is on fire, and you're holding your dying family in your arms, like screaming at the sky. It's just
Yeah, I can
that's
say
where
I
it
can
ends
relate
for
to
me.
that. Yeah.
It just always goes there. It's so I definitely think it's better to refocus that shit and put it into something that you can show you can show. I mean, because honestly, this pandemic has provided me a website, a Twitch channel, just an entirely new outlook, an entirely new trajectory and path for what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life with music and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe not for the rest of my life, but like, it dramatically changed the trajectory of my career.
yeah.
And because I was a full-time musician before this, where I'm gigging every weekend, going out of town. I had a tour booked for this year, or this summer, and none of that happened, and who knows when that's going to happen again. So for me, Twitch and the podcast and just my own music and all the things that I'm involved with has been the best and the brightest coping mechanism, besides my family, which I gotta say, like, thank God for my family. Like, I'm so blessed to have like a beautiful family who's super supportive, and a wife who's much smarter and much cooler than I am. So there's that too. So I can't just give it all up to
Thank God
the work
for the
that
women
I
in
do.
our lives. Yeah, we wouldn't be nowhere without them.
Louise.
I'm just showing off your website here.
I
Scrolling
see
through some
that.
stuff.
Thank you so much, man. Those are my music tutorials, which are basically just really quick licks. Like, those videos are probably like 45 to a minute long, 45 seconds to a minute long, and some of them have like tablature with them, and it's just quick things, just like really quick licks that you can sort of learn in a few minutes, and they really help my YouTube grow. But I've ran into this problem where it's like, is my YouTube channel a podcast channel? Is it like have funny, stupid videos on it? Is it a fucking music tutorial channel? So when you're trying to grow platforms, the biggest thing is consistency, and consistency as in releases, consistency as in content. And the problem with me is that I lack a bit of consistency on my interests. So I think my YouTube and my website are a good example of how my ADHD brain has to function as an artist, because if it was just music or if it was just podcasting, I would have failed a long time ago.
I think that, diversifying the content is important. That's why I've sort of decided on guests, not limiting myself to just artists, but scientists and relevant like Twitch streamers and other people who, just create things in general. I mean, a lot of stuff that I've been interested in isn't necessarily about art, but I think that living is art. So anything is technically art. You want to look at it that way. So, you draw upon the life force, that's the diamond. You grab it. Anyway, you want to do a song for us or something, man?
Sure. I can do a little something. Hold on, let me see what we got here. All right. Let me see. We're gonna start on our. So I used to at the beginning of my streaming career 2 months ago, or no, it's 3 months now. I was doing guests and I was doing these live loops but it was much more expensive than what I do now. I would bring all my gear in, sort of like what Aaron Goldberg does. He just sort of has all his gear laid out, and then I just run it all through a loop pedal and see what I come up with, which I'm pretty decent at that. But that's not my strong point. It's like, thank you. I mean, you got to give it up to the people who can do it the best, and that's Aaron. Autopilot is amazing. Like just like people who really, really, really just were hyper focused on on doing that, just much better. So what I done is I took a lot of like just stuff that I just loops, because I can make loops really quickly. I'm pretty quick at just making something up, and I can keep everything in a key. So you can sort of load everything into sort of my sampler pad here, and then I just throw them all together. And then some of it's pre-programmed, like pre-programmed packs and stuff, and some of it's samples mixed with it. I just Adam Flair. I don't know if he's still in chat, but Adam Flair has a new song out called SEP. Sent me the stems for it, and I was able to sort of remix it with and sort of live, because it turned out to be his birthday the day that I did the live loop. So it was a great birthday present to give one of our community members. So okay, I'll do this song and stop chatting.
Well, I saw that song at the beginning of Tom's interview, right?
What'd you say?
You can't hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, okay. I said I saw that song at the beginning of Tom's interview, right?
Yes, SEP. You mean on the
Tom
audio
Thinks.
release? Or?
Yeah, the audio release of Tom Thinks interview.
Yeah.
I
Exactly. That's Adam's song. Dude, Adam is a fucking murderer. Like, who would have ever known? I wouldn't have known. And I met him through Tom Thinks, which was such a great thing that I met him through Tom Thinks. And
Twitch is a great thing for community. You met
it is, man.
Tom through Aaron, and you met Adam through Tom.
Right.
I met you through Aaron as well. Twitch is great for community, man.
I love it so much. It is so cool. So cool. All right.
I'm going to throw you over to full screen and turn my mic down.
All right, let's do it.
We gotta fix that.
I'm gonna turn off this light and see what happens.
Hold on a sec. Where am I?
I'll take that.
I'll fix it. Don't worry. I just don't know when.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I might just have to bring you back. Play us out, English. Play us out. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm sorry I just kept going. I
That's
could stop
okay.
at any time.
We enjoyed hearing you play.
I just sort of lose track of stuff here. So.
Hey, you know what? It's all good. I like watching you at the end of your streams do the jam out, you know?
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. That's a weird thing for me to... It was a weird thing to start doing, but it works, so I'm having fun with it, so...
It's good. Good that you're having fun with it. Get lost in those jams sometimes,
yeah,
though.
good.
I do it, too. I get lost in those jams sometimes. Just,
hey, man,
zone out to it.
It's just... I'm over here just grooving, baby. I appreciate y'all grooving with me. I really do. I really appreciate y'all hanging out afterwards when I'm jamming, because it really is... It's for you guys, but it's a huge part. It's for me, because I have to keep my chops up as a musician because I'm not playing so much anymore. So really, it's a performance, keeping my performance chops up. So I appreciate y'all when you hang out. That means the world to me. So
Thank you, English,
Thank you, Val.
for coming on the podcast.
Me on. I had fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you had fun here. I was just saying thanks again for joining me.
Of course, man. Anytime.
It was great
you
having
you. Have to come back on mine too.
One day when I have more to show for myself.
Oh, bro, we had so much fun. I had so much fun with this one, and we had so much fun with the one that we did too. So I don't know. I think you have plenty to say.
Yeah, I'll link it all over the place. I'm going to include yours when I post mine. When you get yours up, I'll link it. Thanks again, English.
No problem, guys. Have a good day. I hope y'all stay safe.
Take care, everybody.
Corona free.
Oh yeah.
Here, I'll play y'all.
Thank you for following, Mighty Mighty.
Mighty Mighty. Mighty Mighty.
Peace.